Imagine a world where all your digital stuff, banking, gaming, ID checks, even buying collectibles could just talk to each other seamlessly.
No matter the tech behind them.
Exactly. And that's not sci-fi. It's actually the really audacious goal of a blockchain project we're diving into today. Icon.
It's a vision that, hits right at that digital fragmentation we all deal with, trying to build bridges instead of these digital walls.
And that fragmentation is exactly why Icon's story is so interesting. So our mission today is to unpack this complex, pretty fascinating journey. A project that set out to, quote, hyperconnect the world, build a digital nation.
Height the ambition.
Totally. We'll look at its unique architecture, maybe contrast it a bit with big players like Cosmos, and uncover some surprisingly widespread real-world uses, especially in South Korea where it started. But here's where it gets really current. Icon is in the middle of this huge transformation, a rebrand to something called SODAX. What's going on there? What's driving that?
Yeah, it's a really high-stakes pivot, you could say. So in this deep dive, we'll break down Icon's foundational tech, its actual practical uses, its specific way of handling blockchain interoperability.
Okay.
And then we'll really examine the implications of this recent evolution, peek at the future outlook, this new SODA token.
And where is this info coming from?
We've pulled together quite a stack, technical comparisons, reports on enterprise adoption, some deep financial analyses, and of course, documentation straight from the Icon ecosystem itself.
Great. Okay, let's start right at the beginning then. What exactly is Icon? What was that original big picture goal?
So think of Icon fundamentally as like a universal translator, but for the digital world. It's a decentralized blockchain network, and it was designed specifically to help all these different independent communities and other blockchains actually communicate, talk to each other smoothly. Is founded by Min Kim back in 2017. And its core mission really has always been about providing this solid, decentralized framework for web apps across all sorts of industries, e-commerce, finance, education, healthcare, you name it.
And it got off the ground with funding.
Oh, yeah. Famously raised about $43 million in its initial coin offering, the ICO, back in September 2017.
So it sounds like the ambition here was always way bigger than just, launching another crypto coin. Is this hyperconnectivity idea the main thing that sets it apart?
Absolutely. That vision, hyperconnecting the world, building a digital nation, wasn't just marketing speak. It was genuinely inspired by how, real-world economies work.
How so?
Well, you have distinct players, businesses, institutions, but they can interact, they can trade, often using a common medium, right? But they stay independent.
Right.
That's the model. So the real promise for you, the listener, is a future where your digital life isn't so siloed. It just works together more seamlessly. Less friction. That's the bedrock idea.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, now let's dig into the tech a bit, this fundamental design aspect. Icon wants interoperability, sure, but it takes a different architectural path than, say, Cosmos. How does that work? What does it mean for developers, for the network?
Yeah, this is key. And comparing it to Cosmos is actually really helpful here. Cosmos is often called a layer zero platform. Polkadot is another example of a layer zero.
Layer zero
meaning Cosmos mainly acts as the underlying infrastructure. Its job is to connect separate blockchains, they call them zones, that are built using Cosmos technology.
Ah, okay.
Crucially, the layer zero itself, Cosmos Hub in this case, doesn't run smart contracts or dApps directly. All that computation happens on the individual zones, the blockchain's built on top.
What's the advantage of doing it that way?
Well, a few things. It avoids everyone competing for resources on one single chain. It lets each zone be optimized for its specific purpose, and each zone can have its own governance, its own tokenomics, independent of the others.
Interesting. So Cosmos Hub itself, the first chain built with Cosmos tech, was really just a router initially.
Pretty much, yeah. It was the first layer one built using the Cosmos SDK, designed to connect all the other zones.
Okay, that distinction is really important. So given that layer zero approach, how does Icon's architecture differ? Where is the contrast?
It's quite a different philosophy. Icon operates more like a traditional layer one platform. Think Ethereum or Solana conceptually.
Meaning developers build directly on Icon.
Exactly. Developers can build their applications, their services, right onto the main Icon chain itself. Now, for a developer, this can make deployment, simpler in some ways.
Simpler? How?
You don't necessarily have to go through the process of building and securing your own entire blockchain from the ground up. That was, historically at least, a bit of a hurdle in some layer zero ecosystems, although Cosmos is making that easier now too.
So it's a trade-off.
Definitely. It's a fundamental choice in blockchain design. Do you want this powerful, ready-to-go platform like Icon, or do you want the toolkit like Cosmos to build your own specialized chain within a larger network? Different choices, different benefits, different levels of flexibility and effort.
Got it. Okay, so both Icon and Cosmos are big on interoperability. It's core to both. How do their actual solutions work? How do they bridge these different blockchain worlds?
Right. They both use trustless methods involving something called light clients.
Light clients. What are those, briefly?
Think of them like super efficient blockchain watchers. They can verify transactions and the state of another blockchain without needing to download its entire history. It's like having a trusted, really compact summary of a huge ledger.
Okay, makes sense.
But how they implement this differs quite a bit. For Cosmos, if you want to use their Inter-Blockchain Communication Protocol, IBC, you typically need to build your blockchain using the Cosmos architecture, their SDK, their software development kit.
So it fits their hub and spoke idea. Connect to the Cosmos hub.
Exactly. It's designed to work really well within that ecosystem.
Okay, and Icon's approach with BTP, blockchain transmission protocol.
Yeah, Icon uses BTP. And what's, I think, really interesting here is how you connect. To integrate with BTP, other blockchains just need to implement a few specific smart contracts on their end.
Just smart contracts, not rebuilding with an Icon toolkit.
Right. Which makes it potentially much easier for completely different types of blockchains, think Algorand, Near, BNB, Smart Chain, to connect to Icon. It's not primarily about connecting Icon's own side chains or expansions. It's designed for broader heterogeneous integration.
So that difference could mean Icon has an easier path to connect with a wider variety of existing chains without forcing them to adopt Icon's core architecture.
Potentially, yes. That's the idea behind BTP's design. Broader reach, maybe easier integration across diverse networks.
And I guess the SDKs, the developer kits, would reflect that difference too.
Absolutely. The Cosmos SDK is, primarily geared toward helping you build your own independent blockchain that slots neatly into the Cosmos ecosystem, often using IBC.
Whereas Icon's?
The Icon SDK, on the other hand, can actually be used to spin up mainnets that are totally independent of Icon itself. But crucially, they remain interoperable with Icon through BTP, because BTP support is built into the kit.
Any examples of that?
Yeah, a good one is the HAVAH project. It's an interchain NFT platform. It's its own independent blockchain, but it's connected back to Icon using BTP.
Okay, this is fascinating. Theory and architecture are one thing, but what has Icon actually done out there in the real world? Let's talk applications, especially with its strong South Korean roots. Where has it made a real impact?
Right, this is where it gets tangible. There's a company closely associated with Icon called Icon Loop. They're a major blockchain tech company in South Korea, and they've been key in rolling out enterprise applications.
Like what?
Well, the big one is probably Zone. It's a decentralized identity or DDI solution.
Okay, digital identity has been used.
Significantly.
Yeah.
Shinhan Bank, a major Korean bank, used it for non-face-to-face biometric KYC, Know Your Customer, for opening online accounts.
Wow.
And even more compelling, maybe, the Jeju Island government used Zong during the pandemic for private, secure COVID-19 contact tracing.
Seriously, for contact tracing, that's huge.
Yeah, it shows the versatility. It's secure, verifiable digital identity being used for finance and public health. Icon Loop also leads the MyID Alliance, which is Korea's biggest DID consortium, over 70 members, including huge names like Samsung Electronics.
It really does sound like that secure digital passport idea. What else?
Well, moving to payments, Danol Fintech, which is South Korea's largest mobile payment company, integrated ICX, Icon's token, into its Paycoin app.
Meaning you could spend ICX.
Yep. It was the first crypto, outside of Danol's own tokens, to be accepted at their 60,000 plus merchant partners. We're talking places like KFC, Domino's Pizza.
So real everyday spending, not just niche crypto stores.
Exactly. And there's more. They have proof for digital certificates. The Seoul City government used it. Universities like Post-Tech issued diplomas with it. Then there's Visit Me, a visitor check-in service used by hotels and businesses, especially during COVID.
Okay, so ID, payments, certificates, visitor management, quite a range.
It is, and that's not even touching much on the DeFi side, like Balance Network for creating stable assets, or NFT projects like SDN, which use crypto chips embedded in physical gin bottles to guarantee authenticity on the blockchain.
Gin bottles. Okay, that's specific.
Yeah, but it shows the breadth, right? These examples really drive home how Icon's tech moved beyond just concepts to actually solve real problems across many sectors.
Okay, so we've seen the ambitious start, the unique tech, these impressive real-world uses, but you mentioned this massive transformation earlier. What's the deal with that? What does it mean for Icon's future? Clearly, it's not a project resting on its laurels.
No, definitely not. And it brings up that critical question,
Yeah.
How does a project stay relevant? How does it adapt in this incredibly fast-moving blockchain space?
Right.
Icon is going through a really fundamental shift. As of May 2025, news broke that Icon merged with a DeFi platform called Balanced.
The one you mentioned for stable assets.
That's the one. They merged and are rebranding the whole thing as SODAX. And they're migrating the technical base to Sonic.
Sonic, what's that?
Sonic is described as a high-speed, EVM-compatible chain. EVM compatibility is huge. It means it can run smart contracts written for Ethereum, which opens it up to a massive existing pool of developers and tools.
And why this drastic move? Merging, rebranding, new chain?
Founder Min Kim explicitly mentioned unsustainable Layer 1 operating costs as a major reason. This move is designed to slash those operational expenses. And interestingly, they plan to redirect 90% of the fees generated on this new Sonic chain to holders of SODA.
SODA being the new token replacing ICX.
Exactly. SODA replaces ICX. It's a complete strategic redirection.
Wow, okay. A total overhaul. What's the immediate roadmap look like for this new SODAX ecosystem? What should we expect soon?
Well, the roadmap for Q3 and early Q4 2025 lays out some key steps. First, in Q3, there's a cross-chain money market demo. The goal is to show unified borrowing and lending across, they're saying, 13 plus different blockchains.
Ambitious.
Very. Great for attracting liquidity if it works smoothly.
Yeah.
But yeah, technically challenging and lots of competition in that space.
And after the demo?
Then in early Q4 comes the Balanced V2 launch. This is the merged DeFi platform. They're promising a redesigned interface focusing on something called intent-based trades.
Intent-based, meaning?
Basically, you tell the system what you want to achieve, like swap token A for token B with minimal price slippage. And the system figures out the best way to do it across potentially multiple pools or steps, aiming for near zero slippage and super fast, like 5-second settlements.
That could be really appealing for regular users, simplifying complex DeFi actions.
Could be, yeah. Though it's worth noting, the plans also mention moving to deprecate governance, which, well, it raises some questions about decentralization, which is usually a core tenet.
Interesting wrinkle. And what happens to the old tokens, ICX and Balin from Balance?
That's the big one, also slated for early Q4 2025. Legacy token retirement. The original ICX and Balin tokens will be phased out, sunsetted, and migrated to the new SODA token. It's planned as a 1-to-1 conversion.
That migration, it's got to cause some waves, right?
Short term.
Oh, undoubtedly. You'd expect some short-term sell pressure as people adjust, maybe some confusion. But the stated goal is to simplify the whole merged ecosystem's economics for the long run. One token, one focus.
Okay, so with all this change, this transition, what's the market sentiment like? What are the price predictions saying for ICX, or I guess SODA now, through all this? It's had a wild ride price-wise.
Yeah, mixed is probably the best word for current sentiment. As of September 2025, the ICX price was hovering around 13 cents, which, is a massive drop from its all-time high.
Which was?
Over $12, $12.64 back in January 2018. So yeah, a long way down.
So what are analysts thinking now with SODAX? It's really varied. You have some analyses, like one we saw from Changelly, projecting pretty substantial long-term growth for SODA.
Right.
Like way out to 2050, they were talking averages near $90.
$90, that's optimistic.
Extremely. And contrasts sharply with the short-term outlooks. Sources like CoinCodex are much more conservative for 2025, seeing averages still around the $1.10 mark.
Big difference.
Huge. Just for context, it's also worth mentioning factually that the Wikipedia entry on Icon currently has flags. One questioning if the content is too promotional, and another questioning its general notability. These are just points from our sources to keep in mind for the overall picture.
Right, good to have that context.
Absolutely. But what this whole situation really is a live case study in blockchain evolution, right? You're watching a project actively try to reinvent itself to survive and thrive. It just shows the incredible dynamism and, frankly, the high stakes involved in crypto. This pivot, it could lead to huge growth, or it could face massive hurdles with adoption, competition, the token migration.
Fascinating to watch unfold. Okay, so for an individual user, maybe someone holding ICX or just interested in the new SODAX, how do they actually participate in securing this evolving network? What's the mechanism?
So ICON historically, and presumably SODAX will continue this in some form, uses a delegated proof of contribution protocol. It's very similar in practice to delegated proof of stake, or DPoS, that you see in other chains.
Okay, DPoS meaning voting for validators.
Essentially, yeah. For regular community members, staking means you lock up your tokens ICX previously, presumably SODA going forward, to vote for or support a delegate or a candidate hoping to become one.
And these delegates?
They're also called public representatives, or PREPs. They're the ones who get voted in by the community's stake tokens. Their job is to validate new blocks, keep the chain running, and also participate in network governance decisions.
And what's the benefit for me as a user to stake my tokens? Why would I do that?
Well, a couple of key reasons. First, by staking, you're directly supporting the health and security of the ICON SODAX ecosystem. You're also helping ensure a diverse set of delegates, which makes governance hopefully more representative of the community.
And the practical benefit?
Crucially, yes, there are financial rewards. Staking usually earns you more tokens over time. It's the incentive for participating actively in securing the network. And doing it is usually pretty straightforward, often through wallets like the HANA wallet, or for more technical users, via API functions.
So it shows how you, the individual, can actually play a part in how this decentralized network runs, its security, its direction, and potentially get rewarded for it.
Exactly. You're not just a passive user. You can be an active participant.
Okay, so let's try to wrap this up. We went from ICON's really ambitious beginnings, hyperconnect the world, unique layer 1 design, that innovative BTP for interoperability.
Right, aiming to connect even totally different blockchains.
To seeing its tangible impact in South Korea. Zung for ID, Brew for certificates, Paycoin letting people spend ICX at KFC. Real stuff.
Definitely moved beyond just theory there.
And now, this dramatic metamorphosis into SODAX, moving to the Sonic chain, the new SODA token. A critical new chapter driven by costs and strategy.
A pivot that really highlights the constant need for adaptation in this space. It's never static.
Absolutely not. So as ICON makes this huge shift to SODAX, consolidating everything, aiming for this cross-chain dominance, it leaves us with a big question, a provocative thought maybe for you, our listener, to chew on. Will this high-stakes evolution, this gamble, actually allow SODAX to compete effectively against the established Layer 1 giants, against the big DeFi platforms out there? Or will the inherent challenges migrating tokens smoothly, navigating those potential shifts in governance, fighting for users and liquidity, will those prove to be the ultimate test in its long quest for hyperconnectivity?